Hello and welcome back to Sinister Chapters podcast. This is another instalment in our latest segment where we are having a little bit of a natter and finding out a little bit more of the authors that will be attending Authors at the Armories October 2025 this year. And now we have the wonderful Jan Foster with us today. Hello.
Hello.
So this is so we can just let our listeners or viewers, anyone that's watching us,
Yeah.
know a little bit more about you, what you write. So, our first question for you is what inspired you to start writing?
Um, that's a really good question, actually. I first started writing a children's book, weirdly. I was doing a lot of reading with children in school, in our local primary school where my children go. And I'd had this idea that I wanted to do some writing for a while, basically, sort of inspired by the children there, because I was noticing a lot of them were struggling to get interested in reading. The age group I was reading with was kind of pre the level where they start to diagnose dyslexia as well. So that was part of it because I'm dyslexic. So I was just interested in that. And at the time in my day job, I was working with a swim school and working with them to try and make sure that they were properly set up to engage with children that have SEND needs. So that all kind of came together in a book called Mitch and Mooch Try Swimming, which is a book that I don't even have here to show you, which is really bad, isn't it? But I do have copies, honestly. But it was an illustrated book, and while I was waiting for that to be illustrated and working with the illustrator on that, I thought I really enjoyed doing this. I should write some more. And at the time, we were going through Brexit, and it kind of made me think about other times in our past, in our history, where we as a nation, I suppose, have had massive divisions. And
Yeah.
Brexit, I don't know if you remember, was really, really polarising. You were either for it or against it.
Yep.
And it occurred to me that what I really found interesting was the history side of things, but I wasn't just about the history because that can be a bit dry. So I decided that the best way to observe history was through the viewpoint of if you were an immortal being, how would you look at these things,
Yeah.
knowing what's gone before, and having a longer range perspective, like we do. You know, now we can look back on
Yeah.
history and go, oh well, that was a really bad idea, wasn't it? Anyway, so yeah, that all kind of coalesced, and I started writing book one in my Nature series, which is historical fantasy. To answer your question about what do I write, so I write historical fantasy, and the first book in that series was Disrupting
Oh.
Destiny. So this takes place in the middle of the Reformation, when the dissolution of the monasteries was happening. So you have that division, like we did in Brexit, where you had the Catholics and the Protestants, as they became known, who, and a whole country that was literally divided as to which way to worship. And bearing in
Yeah.
mind, at that time, worship and going to church, it ruled your life.
Yeah.
It was like the calendar by which your entire life was dictated, everything you did.
Yep.
So we can't really understand that so much these days because we get used to our liberties. But at the time, if the church said you do this, then that's what
Oh
you did.
yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was how I got into writing. That was how I got inspired. Yeah, I'm now five
Wow.
full length novels in, and yeah.
Wow.
That's so good. Like I've never come across like a historical sort of book that is like fiction. You know, it's
Well,
one of them genres that I've just never, because I loved history at school. I had the best time with it. So obviously try to when it's incorporated into books, I'm like,
well,
oh, because you go back to your school lessons, don't you? And you're like, oh my god, I remember
yeah, you
this, I
do. You
remember
think
this.
you think you know history as well, and I think
Yeah,
when as an adult you dive more into it, there's all
yeah,
these other little nuances that you just don't get when you're a kid because you have no life experience as a
yeah,
child. I hate to say it, but you don't.
yeah,
No.
My son is currently doing history GCSE and he's doing the war, and it feels terribly dry. And I'm like,
yeah,
it really isn't. It
yeah.
Yep.
really
Once
isn't.
you strip it back, yeah, it's
Read
there's
this and look at this, and then you'll see what it was really, really like. But dates and figures and facts are very
yeah,
boring. bring them to life though in a
Yeah.
story. And actually, you say you've never met somebody that does historical fantasy, but actually there's a huge amount of fiction that is a
Yeah.
retelling of history. You
Yeah.
just don't necessarily twig it. And I'm kind of
Yeah.
like, I'm a little bit anal. I do try and be accurate where I can be.
Yeah.
But again, it's with that perspective of my characters being immortal fae. They've
Yeah.
got that perspective that we have. So
Yeah.
Wow. That's
See,
such a good
yeah,
world to dive into.
yeah, I'm a bit of a history buff
Yeah.
myself.
it's
So
funny how many people think they are, but they never admit it really, but they
No,
are.
no.
oh,
It's one of them where you try and keep quiet, you're like, oh, it's not really for
No,
me.
it's
And
just
then you were
oh,
sat in your
reading
history
me.
lessons and you were like this.
no, I love it. I always bring out the fact that I know a scary amount about Imperial Russia.
Yeah.
Wow, that's so cool though. There's a
Yeah.
load there, isn't there?
Yeah, I studied Imperial Russia and then the Cold War as well during college. So it's like I know all like the gruesome, gory details about like the
Brilliant.
Romanovs and
I might have
stuff
to
like
pick your
that.
brains then.
And it's so interesting to be able to sort of pull out the fact of like when they were killing, I think it was the Romanovs. They couldn't shoot them. They had to stab them with bayonets because they had all of the jewels sewn
Mm.
into the linings of their clothing, and it was basically like shields. It was like armor for them,
Yeah.
and that's why they couldn't. It took them so many tries to kill them that they just couldn't do it. And like both me and my partner are quite big history buffs as well, so we're taking a trip to Berlin soon to go
Yes.
find out a little bit more. And like he did Poland last year as well, so being able to sort of dip my toe into, I think, historical romance
Mm.
would be really, really interesting. And it's not something that I've actually done yet.
It's
No.
surprisingly hard. I I thought because my books won't particularly romantic because my main couple. When I say romance, there is a difference as an author. You understand that the romance genre is very very largely dominated
Hmm.
by person A meets person B,
Yeah.
and then there's the romance, and then they end up together.
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
is romance. I hadn't kind of twigged that. I hadn't really understood exactly when I started writing, because obviously you don't train to be a novelist, do you? Nobody says, "Oh,
Mm.
here, there you go. This is how you do
yeah,
it." You just do it.
Yeah.
Um, but after some years, I realised that I had a bit of a problem because I hadn't particularly followed the romance rules. I'd gone straight in there
Yeah.
with what I thought was interesting of a couple. They were
Yeah.
already a couple. So my stories, my main series set in the Tudor age, they're already a couple. And I
Yeah.
was having readers coming back to me and going, "Yeah, but how did they get together? How was they? How did it happen?" And I had, the occasional romantic subplot, etc. That's not the important thing, is it? So then I had to write a prequel, which I
Just to
did,
tell people how it
to
happened.
tell people how it happened, because I knew, but they obviously didn't,
Yeah.
and
yeah,
it was all kind of tied in together. There was this whole history that you don't want to reveal
Yeah.
until you need it in the storyline that I'd already thought of. So I had to write that book, which was set a century earlier in the
Wow.
1400s, to kind of do that. But I have to tell you, talking historical romance, it's really hard because you
Mm.
have to follow all the romantic beats, which, when you're like somebody like me that basically uses the historical events as part of the plot narrative,
Yeah.
like really, really a stick to it. If it
Mm.
happened then, it happened then. If I say
Yeah.
that, it
yeah,
really did, and I've covered that entirely, and I know exactly what I'm doing. I don't play around with timelines.
Hmm.
So I had to find, had to work the romance on the beat by beat sort of
Yeah.
basis that you have to do, because otherwise your readers are going to go, "There's something wrong here. It's not following as it's supposed to." And then try and fit that into what actually happened when.
It's a whole lot of brain power.
Yeah, I
yeah.
set myself up for a really bad thing, but I think it worked. People
Yeah.
people do like it. Yeah. So, so
I
yeah,
can honestly say
historical
I've only
romance
ever
I have
read.
read a lot of now and
Yeah.
realised, yeah, that's actually quite tricky. So
I've only
Yeah.
ever read one book where the couple's already established,
yeah, I know.
you know, and then even then I've been like, but how did we get here?
Thank you. That's exactly the problem I had.
Yeah, like where did we get from A to B?
Yeah. So that was a very largely reader demanded novel,
Yeah,
which was, fine, and I'm happy to,
yeah.
happy to respond to requests, etc., like that. But I'm looking forward to
Oh,
book 4 in my main series, where it's already done. There are already a couple again, and I don't need to worry about that. But then they do have other adult issues.
yeah.
So there's other themes in the books that are very much, things like finding family that not
Mhm.
necessarily your blood relatives, but your friends that are so
Yeah.
close to you that they become family, that you consider them family, that you look after their children. Um, Speaking of children, it covers the problem of having children when you
Yeah.
really want one and you can't.
Yeah.
That's sort of quite difficult subjects, and dealing with death of a parent.
Oh,
There's adult themes in my books that
yeah.
I hope will appeal to the grown-ups that read them. They're not really YA. That would be nice.
Yeah.
They were. It's a big market, but no.
Yeah. Oh, wow. What have we got next?
Sorry.
Could you share a little bit about your writing process?
Yeah, absolutely. I tend to start, as you may have guessed, with the history,
Yeah.
and I look for either a year or certain years which a lot of very interesting things happen in a quite small space of time.
Yeah.
So, the years and the activities within those years are, like I say, they form the narrative backbone. I also have in my head what I want the characters to start with and how they're going to end up. So I know the beginning and I know the end, and then the middle is kind of like the events sort of
Yeah.
influence how they deal with it.
Yeah.
So, for example, the latest release here, this is book 3, Destiny Arising, and that actually, I kind of knew where I wanted my characters to begin and end when I started researching, but also the years that I chose to set it in, there was a lot of murder, so a lot of deaths.
Yeah.
So that then became a bit of a murder mystery.
Yeah.
And I hadn't thought it was going to be at first because of where the characters started and finished. I knew that much. But the kind of mechanism by which they get there turns out to be a murder mystery. So yeah,
Oh, that's
Yeah.
so
kind of fun. So
interesting.
that's one example of how I work.
Yeah.
But I do start with the history, and I get a general feel for what happened, when, who the players were, who I need to therefore make my cast list, as it were, and that's growing a lot, which is not great.
It's just getting bigger.
Yeah, I've just started plotting book 4, and I'm thinking, this is really good. I hope my readers can keep a track of who all these people are now, because who knew the difference between Walsingham and Drake, and all these.
Oh, God.
We're getting there. We're getting there. It's
Yeah.
all right. It's
Yeah.
gonna be fine. It's gonna be fine.
We'll
So that's
make
my
it.
process. So I start the research, and then I do a vague plot and try and make sure that I'm hitting all of those must-have moments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And usually, sort of, the battles that are going to happen along the way. I'm quite interested in medieval warfare, so and seafare. Even though I get really, really seasick myself, I find boats quite fascinating and naval battles quite interesting.
Yeah.
So there's a fair amount of that, because ultimately that was how they travelled great distances. And then I weave in the fantasy bit and the
Yeah.
magic and stuff as kind of, no, it's
Well,
not an afterthought.
sprinkle it in.
It's there, but it's,
Yeah.
it's like the what's possible, and you have your own
Yeah.
magical rules that you've got to stick to, haven't you? So that makes it even more complicated. Actually, I think I enjoy the planning more than the writing in some ways.
The research beforehand.
Yeah.
Yeah, the research goes on and on and on though, and I've actually just I've just done a stupid thing and changed genres for another book. It's taken me about 8 months to do. That's just
Wow.
straight historical. That's it. Totally different era, straight historical. And it is an absolute rabbit hole research. It really is. You end up being very, very stop, start.
Yeah.
So now, to counteract it, I think I might just have to just do a straight fantasy, which seems so much easier.
Yeah.
It really does. I actually have envy for fantasy authors, because once you've made your own world and you've got it in your head,
Yeah.
or you've got it on some kind of word anvil or whatever you choose to use, God, it's got to be so much easier.
You can just make your own rules, can't you? And
I know,
Yeah.
you can
your
make
own
your own
dates
rules
and things like
and
that.
break them if you want to.
Yeah.
No, you can't do that with history, can you?
No.
Unfortunately, no.
No.
So our next one is, could you give us a brief overview into your most recent release?
Well, the most recent. Oh no, it's not. I was going to say it's this one, which is the murder mystery, because that was the most recent big book, and that is a murder mystery. It starts with one of my characters who's a witch having a vision, and it's a vision that keeps pulling her in. She keeps getting lost in it, and it's all about queens dying, and she just doesn't know what on earth is going on, why she's having this vision, and worse than that, she's in a cart going across a moor about to be held for trial for witchcraft when she is an actual witch. So that's kind of fun. So yeah, she calls upon her friends to help her, and more queens keep dying, and they set off to try and discover who's behind it. And then in a parallel storyline, you have my wonderful morally grey vampire, who's taken over the throne of the Fey Kingdom, which he really shouldn't have done. And the problem is, he's a good king. He is a good king, but he's not the right king.
Yeah.
Because he's a vampire ruling over a Fey kingdom. And
Ah.
to be honest, that isn't going to work, is it? Let's be honest here, that's just not going to fly. You've got all your people have wings, and you're a vampire.
Yes.
So yeah, he's struggling, and it becomes very, very clear to him that he needs help. Help arrived in an unlikely form that he really isn't very sure about, and he's quite right not to be sure about. So you've got these two parallel storylines, and of course they're going to converge, because that would be boring otherwise, wouldn't it, if they didn't actually converge. So yeah, so that's that one, and that released in spring of last year.
Yeah.
And what I've been doing since then is writing. I have a separate ebook only series called Fables from Naturae, which looks at certain sub characters or
Yeah.
minor characters. I know there's a proper word for it there, but I just can't think of it right now. The minor characters, side characters, that's the one, who I feel like they deserve their own story,
Yeah.
Yeah.
because they're interesting.
Yeah.
But they're not interesting enough to be considered main characters
Yeah.
in the book. But they do have their own stories. So there's a couple of those. One is with my wonderful Luxter demon, Fairfax, who goes off on a quest on his ship, and tries to save the life of Queen Elizabeth I, and meets Granny O'Malley, who is the Irish pirate queen. We love her. Can't knock a pirate queen.
No.
She's wonderful.
Absolutely not.
And another one, which is the Killer's Confession from this book. But it's okay, you can read the two independently, and you won't still, you might twig, you might not. Probably not.
Ah, I like that.
So I wrote that one alongside writing the big one as well, because I needed to understand my killer's motivations as well, because that's quite important, isn't it?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a short story. And then most lately I've just published a romance, well, not romance, it's a romantic, because it's not quite a romance, but it's a romantic story with my two main characters, Aoife and Joshua, and it's how they get married. Which is called A Rose in Midwinter. And it's very sweet, and it's all Christmassy, and it's got little nativity themes in it, and it's got Margaret Beaufort, who was the mother of all the Tudors as well. Just to chuck her in there.
Just slip her in there somewhere.
Well, it sits in between the two books, you see.
Yeah.
So the prequel and the book one, it sits in between there, and that was just because I really wanted to do something nice on Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
I do love a good Christmas book. Like,
it's almost like, I love when you're really sort of like into a series, and then you'll get like a small novella, and it's almost like when you're watching a series and you get like the Christmas special.
Yeah.
And it's like, these are what these characters are doing during Christmas.
During Christmas, yeah.
Yeah. Exactly that. That was exactly the vibe I was going for.
Yeah.
I just fancied, something a little, not a proper
Little,
story.
little
Doesn't matter
something
to have
in
a couple
there.
of books. Just a little Christmas book. Why not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And it's so nice to have like side characters have their own books, because so often we read books and you meet these side characters and then you end up falling in love with them also, and you're always wanting like, oh, I wish she'd bring out a book for this side character and this one and this one. So it's nice for them to have their own story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. I love that too. I love little
Yeah.
extras and I haven't yet done the bonus chapters thing because I sort of think, well, my books are quite big anyway, so I'm not sure I need to add to 130 words, but 130,000 words.
Do you want to do the next one, George?
Where are we up to?
Number 4.
Oh yes. Could you give us a sneak peek into your next release?
Yeah, this is the one that is coming up in spring. I haven't yet actually set it release or listed it or anything or even announced it. Except actually, no, I tell a lie. I can tell you now, the time literally is 15:44, and I think at 15:40 I have a scheduled post going out on AATA at this very moment, which is showing the cover. So yes, we can talk about it.
Woo!
Officially, I'm announcing it in the Facebook group, so that's great. So my next release is not fantasy at all. This is a straight historical thriller, and it's called Sewing Resistance. And it is the story of a young girl and her son. I say young girl because she had him when she was quite young. And having fleeing the scene from a convent where she was living with her son in Germany, she arrives in Paris just before it gets occupied, and she has really big dreams. She has this dream of working for Chanel and designing with her, and that is her dream. The problem is that she's turned up penniless, pretty much an orphan herself, with a young boy in tow, having fled Nazi Germany, and yeah, she's a Jew, so a bit of a problem. Amazingly, she does get a job with Chanel. As it happens, her best friend from Germany is also living in Paris, takes them in, and she gets this job with Chanel. But of course, it all goes horribly wrong when
Yes.
the Germans arrive, and Chanel closes up her shop. So she ends up having to make a very horrible decision about either do I survive or do I stay with my child or do I leave him somewhere safe. So yeah, so she she chooses the I'll have to leave my son somewhere safe where I can survive option, and not only that, but she ends up through the course of the occupation getting involved with the resistance. So there's a lot of real characters, real people, which is somewhat contentious because some of them might have families still alive.
Oh God.
But again, history, research, gotta be as true and as accurate as possible, and the actual characterizations of them, I've tried to remain as true as I can to how
Yeah.
they were,
Yeah.
while at the same time presenting what we now know, because there's a difference between what was thought at the time to what was actually happening, and now it's over 50 years, so we can safely read these documents. They're allowed,
Yeah.
and you can safely expose what people were really up to, which is really cool, and I really liked it. And it was a story. You know when they say authors have like the story of the heart.
Yeah.
Mine, I think. It was a story I just wanted to tell.
Yeah.
I'm a massive Chanel fan. I wrote my university dissertation on Chanel. So I just kind of feel like I needed to evolve from that and do
Yeah.
a story with her in it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Just to kind of put it to rest.
Yeah.
The story of my heart. So this is the story of my heart. And that will be hopefully coming out in spring.
So exciting.
I know.
I will cut this bit out, however, so I think your episode will be released sort of mid-Feb to late Feb. So we're definitely in the clear, I hope. So or anything being released, I'm hoping
Yeah.
that we're all in the clear for people already knowing and that type of thing.
Great.
So our next question for you is, if you could branch out into any other genre, what would it be?
My head says something more profitable. My heart says something I like to read, and I like to read a lot of different books. I would. There's a lot of people that authors that I read, genres that I read, that I would love to write in, but I just don't have that talent.
Yeah.
I don't. I love mysteries. I love murder
Yeah.
mysteries. I really struggled with doing one myself. It was really, really hard. It took me
Yeah.
twice as long as I planned because it was really, really hard. I would love to write cozy mystery, but I just don't think it's me. I I love thrillers. I love legal thrillers in particular. I know nothing about the law. No intention of writing it, but I love it, and I would love to write it. I just
Yeah.
can't. So I think you have to accept your limitations somewhere. My head, like I say, suggests something profitable. I would think contemporary romance or urban fantasy. Tried romance, found it a bit of a struggle to write. To be honest with you, I can't just dash it off. That's just not
Yeah.
me. Um,
Yeah.
so
So,
yeah,
yeah.
if I could write another genre, those are the genres I'd love to write in, but I don't think I can.
Yeah. I think sometimes it's a good thing. Like I love that. I think that's one of my favorite questions to ask. It's always like, if you could do absolutely anything in the whole entire world, like what would you do? That
Yeah.
type of thing. And I think it's just a good thing to be like, I absolutely love X, Y, and Z.
But I
But
know
here's
I'm
how
good
I'm
at
gonna do
this.
it and that type of thing.
Yeah.
But no, I love that because like I'd love to be able to write. I'd love to be able to write a
Straight
book
up, yeah.
and be an author. But so I'm dyslexic, so
Don't let that stop you. If you think you can do it, you can still do it.
and I
Take it from me.
Yeah.
I talk a little bit. I talk a little bit more eloquently than I do when I write. So if I was ever to do something like that, I'd have to get like a like a voice to text type thing. I used it during uni. It was one of the best pieces of software I'd ever used. It helped me write my dissertation. So I'd probably do something like that. But to be able just to sit and think about it, I think is really interesting.
It is a hard question to answer, actually, because
Yeah,
what you read and what you enjoy reading isn't necessarily what you enjoy writing.
Yeah.
Like you, I'm quite. I actually get really cross with lazy prose when I read it.
Yeah.
I just think, come on, you could have put a bit more attention to detail in there. You could have just phrased that just slightly differently,
Yeah.
so it would have a bigger impact. And I
yeah,
find it really annoying that lazy writing essentially. So I try really hard with my prose. I try to make it eloquent. I try to make it variable in structure, sentences, sentence structure, even. That sort of thing. And I'm with you. It is easier to speak it sometimes than it
Yeah.
is. Although hearing me today, you probably wouldn't think that. I am normally quite an eloquent person, but it's getting on in the day, and I haven't yet had
Yeah.
enough coffee.
yeah,
So I'm with you in terms of the speech to text thing is an absolute godsend, to be quite honest with you. But
yeah,
yeah, you do have
Winner.
to accept sometimes you have limitations on what genre you feel comfortable writing with. Like, I would love to write erotic, but I just don't think I could do it. I just don't think it would flow off my tongue very well.
I feel like when it comes to like erotic writing, you've really got to be descriptive with it, and it's one of them where like we've read some, and there's some way it will just like you'll just be blessed, you'll like phase over it, you sort of know what's going on, you can sort of picture it yourself, and then there's others that we've read where the description is very there, like it's a complete movie in your head, and you're like, they really went there.
That's a skill. That is definitely a skill. I'm not sure
Yeah.
I have it.
Like sometimes we've read them and it's just, we've had to like go back a page and be like, Did they really? Is that what they really say? Yeah,
Sometimes you do read it and you just think, how?
Some of
yeah,
them, I'm pretty sure at one point I sent you a stick drawing, like a
yeah,
diagram or something, because I was like, I can't figure out
yeah.
where they are or what they're
If
doing.
we've read like Why Choose or like Reverse Harem, and and the author's like, oh, such and such a person's here and here and here and here, and we've gone on to draw, think, does that look right?
It's a skill. It's a
Yeah.
definite skill writing that, and I'm not sure I have. I'm not sure. I think my husband would very much like me to have it.
Oh God. What have we got next? Oh, who's your favourite character that you've written so far?
That's really hard.
A lot. We've had a lot of authors really stumble on this because it's so hard to just
Pick one.
focus in on one.
I know who my readers like the most, which is my Henry, the vampire, Henry Fitzroy.
Oh.
They very definitely, they're always going on about him in reviews, which is quite really sweet.
Yeah.
And I do enjoy writing him because he's so morally grey. You're never really quite sure how he's going to react to something until I write the words on the page. And even then, I'll go back and I'll change it, and I'll go, oh, would he really do that?
Would he say that?
Is that too much? So I do enjoy writing him. But actually, the character that always makes me smile to write is one of my side characters called Fairfax, and he's a demon that is, unfortunately, one of those people that he doesn't intend to cause chaos. It just happens
wherever he goes.
Wherever he goes, and we've all met people like that, haven't we?
Yeah.
And all of my demons are, like, I call them extraordinary people. So they haven't got magic, but they are what we would today possibly put as maybe being on the spectrum or super genius or something like that. So if you can think of the names that have gone through time, like, you know, Leonardo da Vinci, those sorts of people, Einstein, to me, they're clearly what I would call demons. They're extraordinary people.
Yeah.
And that
Just
can either take
just
the
brilliant
form of
people.
genius
Yeah.
or unbelievably mad. And again, looking at the time period, the church would have viewed those people as mad, totally like beyond normal.
Yeah.
So they are my demons. And Fairfax has a bit of a genius ability with numbers and calculations and things like that. Unfortunately, this makes him amazing at playing cards, he is just the most unlucky person ever. Whatever's going to go wrong will go wrong.
Will go wrong.
Accidentally killing a queen.
Oh.
Accidentally.
Whoopsie.
To, you know, his ship catching on fire. This is what happens to him. So in that sense, again, his very unpredictability makes it really fun to write, because he just doesn't care. He's just like, okay,
It is what it is.
I'm going to get on with it. And oops, sorry. So he's fun to write. I like him.
We love a chaos character.
Oh, yeah.
They're always like such fun to read, aren't they? And you can always relate to a part of yourself thinking, I have been that chaos at some point.
It doesn't. It's not like he causes it. It's
it just happens.
Yeah. So we are up to our final question, and it's really nothing to do about writing. It is, do you have any hobbies outside of writing?
Cinema.
Yeah.
Bit of a movie buff.
Well, my background is in drama, and I have a degree in film and television and drama.
Oh.
So that was where the love of the Tudors came from, was all the Shakespeare that was kind of rammed down your throat, because in the end you get to like it, and I love it. So yeah, but the knock-on effect of that was that I became very interested in film, whereas I think in school I hadn't been that bothered about film, to be quite honest with you. But I also dabble in screenwriting, which I say dabble because I'm probably not very good at it, but I try. And yeah, so film, I think, is it, and I have a cinema pass, so I can go to the cinema.
Yes.
Whenever I want to, it's my little escape. I run away to the cinema and sit there and drink coffee.
I
I
love
love
that.
a cinema trip. They're like one of my favourite things to do.
It's
I
so
know I've not been to the
expensive,
cinema
isn't
in ages either.
This is it. This is it. And I feel quite aggrieved when I haven't been and had my little, like,
Yeah.
fix for a while. I do love to the cinema. Sometimes when I should be working, I'll just go, oh yeah, but I'm never going to get to see that film again in the big screen.
Yeah.
It needs to be seen in the big screen.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I
And
think you got to
I
go
like
see.
the fact that it's an entire story,
Yeah.
beginning to end, in 2.5 hours.
Yeah. You can
Yeah.
just cram it all in and
That's it.
just watch it.
You watched
It's like
Nosferatu, didn't you?
I did.
Recently, George?
is that good?
Oh,
It's
it
on
was
my list.
incredible.
That's on
It
my
was
list. I might go
so
see that.
good. Because I watched Bram Stoker's Dracula, and that was chef's kiss, exquisite. And then obviously went watching Nosferatu.
That's not what I would call it, but anyway.
It was just, honest to God, like it's not your traditional vampire either. You know, how you expect a vampire, you know, they're quite attractive and, you know, and they use all this, like, sensual goodness.
That's a 20th century thing.
Yeah.
Really.
And then you get to Nosferatu and you're like, whoa. But I still find him attractive at the same time. But how it was filmed, it was, like, all very grayscale, very gothic romance type deal, and all the way it was 2.5 hours long, and all the way through I'm like, wow, I'm having the best time.
Right, I might have to see that tonight then. It's on my list.
Oh,
of
it was
films I want to
incredible.
see.
It was so good.
Whereas the last time I went to the cinema, I went to go and watch. I think it was The Kingsman.
Oh yeah.
That's how long it's been.
You've missed a few years.
It's been a fair few years.
Oh.
And there's been a few that have come out that I've really wanted to watch in cinema. Like I wanted to go and see Long Legs.
Yeah.
I'm slowly getting into sort of like so I love a psychological thriller.
I
When it
do.
comes to, like the movie, when it comes to a movie, or even when it comes to a book, I love to sit and binge a thriller and play detective alongside the main character to figure out what's going on. So if I can watch something where I have to play detective alongside it, I'm like, I've got it.
I already know who it is.
No, I haven't. Never mind. There's a reason why I didn't do that.
And then comes the twist.
Yeah, I thought I had it down. I don't.
But no, I love that. I wish I do want to go to the cinema more.
Mm-hmm.
That is something that I do want to do. Or if not, I want to go to the theatre more, because I absolutely love going to the theatre and going to the show and having the whole day just be able to sort of like, no, I'm not doing anything. I'm going to the theatre tonight. Everything's gonna be grand.
Yeah, and I'm going to have the best time.
But
I haven't been
thank
to the
you
theatre
so
in a while,
much.
apart from
Yes.
Panto, so.
Yeah.
See, I do love a panto. I love a panto, but no, I love going to watch musicals. My little brother is doing musical theatre at uni down in London, so I'm hoping at some point we'll be able to go and watch him in a show down in London.
Well, if you're down there, I have to say, I had zero expectations for the Harry Potter Cursed Child. Which, even though I love I've got the script, as it were, love that, really enjoyed it. For some reason in my head, it just wasn't kind of clicking on a stage. I just couldn't visualise it, which is odd considering my background in theatre and all that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know why the script is doesn't bring it to life as you would imagine it to be. So I had no preconceived opinions about what to expect from seeing it at the theatre, and I got to tell you, it's amazing. It's absolutely phenomenal.
I will have to have a look. I know
I love it when
long,
something
though, to have it in
exceeds.
two. So you go to an afternoon part 1 and then evening part 2 with like 2 hours or something in between, so you can go and get something to eat, and it's phenomenal.
I'm definitely going to have a look. I think the last time we looked at going down to the theatre, it was we were going to go watch The Lion King. My partner is big into The Lion King, and he's always wanted to go and see it. Whereas I'm on the other end. I'm like, let's go watch Chicago, or let's go watch
Yeah.
Moulin Rouge.
Yes.
All good.
Yes. But thank you so much for talking
Yes.
with us. It's
Thank
been
you for
absolutely
having me.
lovely.
I really appreciate the opportunity, and it's been so
Yeah.
fun to chat to you girls. Thank you very much.
Yes.
And we will see you in October in person.
Yeah, looking
We'll
forward.
be running
Exciting
around
times.
with cameras, mics, lights, everything,
All that jazz.
all the good stuff.
Wonderful. Well, I can't wait to see you in person. It'd be really, really lovely to meet. But I think from your accents, I'm guessing you're actually quite close to me.
So
I'm
we're
in
Manchester.
I'm just south of Manchester.
But I'm northeast.
Manchester.
Northwest for me.
There we go.
See, we're all northwest babes.
Yeah,
Fabulous.
we're all the northerners.
Well, I'm not originally from round here. I'm
No, you're
originally
Liverpool,
from
aren't you? I can tell from your accent.
no,
Aren't you?
Nottingham.
Where?
Nottingham.
Oh, we'd never
So-
guessed that. There was a slight Liverpool twang there earlier before we.
Yeah, my accent's a little bit all over the shop, but
It's from everywhere.
but originally from Nottingham, so it's Robin Hood country and Sherwood Forest and
Oh.
all of that good stuff. So, but we're up here now, and we are so excited to be able to see you in Leeds in October.
It's going to be lovely.
Yes, and we are hoping that you can grab some tickets as well. They are still on sale. Grab them now. We would love to see you all in October. Thank you very much.